Good day everyone who is watching my video. So today we are still doing grade 10 content and we are doing factorization. So without wasting time, let's discuss what do we mean by factorize. To factorize is to take out a common factor in terms. So we have terms here. This is a term, this is a term. So when they say must factorize this expression fully, what we have to do is that we have to check what is the common element in this term and this term. So the common element here, it's x. So you have to take it out. After taking x out, what are you gonna be left with from the first term? You're gonna be left with 3, and then on the term x squared, you're gonna be left with x. So what I advise learners to do after doing factorization is that they must check if they multiply this thing back, it is going to give them the same expression that they started with. This expression started with. So if you were to multiply this, it must return you to this. How are you going to do that? You just say x times 3 is what? 3x. X times x, it's x squared. I see students sometimes making mistakes. So this is just a way of checking that you did not make any mistakes. It's just that this one is a very simple example, but as you continue solving other complicated examples, you will see that perhaps it's necessary to check if you have done the right thing. Not that you don't understand, but just to double check if you did not make any mistakes when solving your problems. So continuing to 1.2.2, we have an expression here. So how do you go about solving this? Let me first tell students that in mathematics there are a lot of ways to kill a cat. There are several ways that you can kill a cat. There are many ways to kill a cat. So I'm just gonna do this example using 2 methods, or rather in 2 ways. So the first method I'm gonna use is that I'm gonna take my common factor as y. I'm taking my common factor as y. So if I take y out of these 2 terms, because I see that there is y in the first term and there's also y in the second term, so I wanna take it out here and see what's gonna happen. If I take it y from the first term, I'm gonna have 1. The second one, I'm gonna have 1 minus x, and then here you are still left with x minus 1. Students are gonna get frightened and say, hey man, what should I do now? I took out the common factor, yes, but I'm in this situation. What am I gonna do now? Do you see that you have 1 minus x here, and here you have x minus 1? Let me tell you something. If you ever see something like this, whereby you are having a initial fact, it's wise to do a bracket here, right? After doing a bracket here, you'll see that these terms, they are almost the same, just that you have 1 minus x this side, meaning that your number here is positive, but here your number is negative, and then here your letter it's negative, and here your letter is positive. Also, it's just that the arrangement is not the same. So I would advise students to then go about and arrange 1 minus x plus minus 1 plus x. So you've now arranged the 2 brackets. You have numbers starting first in the bracket, right, and then you have a letter following, right? So if you can make these 2 brackets to look the same, you are gonna be done with your problem. So how can you make these 2 brackets to be the same? It's either you can manipulate this one or you can manipulate this one. So students need to know how to manipulate in mathematics. it's not something you should cram. It's just that you have to be creative. But okay, let me just continue. So here I want to manipulate this one, right? Remember, as students or learners, you are not the same. The other student will want to manipulate this one, but at the same time, or rather at the end of the day, the goal is to make these two brackets to be the same. So we have 1 minus x here. Manipulation is just that you have to take out a negative sign, and then you're gonna be left with 1 minus x here. Why are we saying this is manipulation? This is manipulation because I quickly wanna show you that if I multiply this sign with this bracket, it's gonna return me to this bracket. Let me quickly show here. If you were to say minus 1, there's 1 here, right? But we don't actually write it. There is 1 here. If you were to say negative 1 times 1, you will get what? Negative 1. And then negative 1 times negative x, you are gonna get positive x. So this means that this thing here is the same as this, as I have shown, or rather proved here, right? Yes. So after manipulation, you just want to multiply. There's also 1 here, but usually don't write ones in mathematics. Like, we know there is 1 here. Even here, I'm not supposed to write this one. We know there is 1 here, right? So here, I'm not going to write that 1. So continuing, you just have to multiply out your signs. Positive times negative is negative, right? And then you're going to have 1 minus x. So do you see now that these two brackets look the same? And you can say this is a term and this is also a term. So if you have two terms and they have something that is the same, so that means that is a factor. You have to take it out. What is that? It's 1 minus x. On the first term, if you take out 1 minus x, you are going to be left with what? Y. And then on the second term, if you take 1 minus x, this bracket, you're just going to be left with what? 1. Once again, if you were to multiply this expression by this expression, it will return you to this one, right? So now you are done with your problem. So this is still the very same example, 1.2.2. This time I just wanna solve it in a different way. So I see that I have a term here and a term here, and they both have the same element, which is x. So it's a good thing if you arrange them properly, the ones that you see that they have a common factor, or the one that you want to deal with. So just arrange them nicely. X minus y, we have positive y is this one, and then we have minus 1. So after that, you see that, oh, I have x on both these two terms. So let me factor x out. I'm going to be left with 1 minus y, right? Because if you multiply this expression, we're going to end up with this one. If you multiply, if you factor, and then you have the result, and then if you multiply that result and then it does not return you to where you started, that means you made a mistake. That means you are not correct here, right? We have what? Y minus 1. So if you make a bracket here, the reason I'm making a bracket is because I can observe that this bracket is almost the same as this bracket, but something small, it's just only something small that's making them to not look the same, but they are almost the same. So what can you do? You have to do manipulation. Here we have 1 minus y. So how do you manipulate? Manipulation is just to take out a negative sign, and then now see what you're gonna have. Negative y plus 1. Actually, I was supposed. It's a good practice to arrange them first Like, do you see that in this bracket the first element in the bracket, it's a number, and then the second element, it's a letter. So just do the same on the other bracket. 1 minus y, and then here, if you multiply this positive to this bracket, you're going to end up with a negative. But then once again, start with 1 and then end with a 1 is a number, right? And then y is a letter, so let it follow. This is just a good arrangement, right? From there you can see that from these two terms you have something in common, which is 1 minus y. So if you take out 1 minus y, from the first term you're going to be left with x, and then from the second term you're going to be left with 1. All right. Oh, actually I didn't finish here. If you want this thing to look the same as the other one, you're still correct, you're still correct, but just to prove that this one is the same thing as that one, what you just have to do is to take out negative sign on both terms, or rather brackets. So you're gonna have minus 1 plus y, so negative times negative is positive, right? So you're gonna end up with a positive number anyway. So this one, when you arrange it, it's 1 minus x, 1 minus x. The arrangement does not matter. 1 minus x, and then the other bracket you have y plus 1. I mean y minus 1, not plus 1. It's y minus 1. As you can see, it's y minus 1. So this solution is the same as the solution you got from the first method, which is this one. This is the first method.